Hello and welcome. We got the Week 9 NFL DFS Slate Breakdown. We're going to be going over the whole slate today. It's an interesting one. There's one game total at 47, couple at 44. Everything else is really low. So we're going to go over all that. I think there are some interesting angles to attack. Now, before we do, make sure to come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month, and it gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS for all sports we cover. The best deal in our industry by far. So come join us. Come join in the fun. Now let's get into this slate. So quick slate overview. It is only 10 games. So a little smaller slate than last week. Only a total of 20 teams. Now, the interesting games obviously are the Cowboys versus Eagles, highest game total on the slate. And then we have the Colts versus the Panthers at 44 and Seahawks versus Ravens at 44. So these games are obviously getting a lot of the ownership. And with this Eagles-Cowboys game, it's really hard to project how it's going to go due to the fact that it's an interdivision game. And if we look back, they really haven't had a ton of points. 26-17, 21-41. Obviously, 41's a really nice score. 17-37. But what I'm getting at is it's not like this game has created shootouts. Yes, maybe one team pulls away some weeks, but for the most part, it's generally a closer, maybe a little lower scoring game. So while it has two of the best quarterbacks this week in that game, it's hard to really want to go overboard there. Now, the fastest games of the week. We have the Colts versus the Panthers, 44 game total. There are definitely paths where this game is able to explode. Both defenses are terrible. We got the rookie quarterback, but he can, he's been decent lately. He has some weapons to get that offense going. Colts defense is terrible. It has some offensive weapons, and it has two different running backs that can make and break deep, long runs. So that just adds to the possibility of that game being a shootout. And then lastly, and then we got Houston, Tampa Bay as a fast game, and Minnesota, Atlanta. Now, Minnesota, Atlanta is kind of weird because the Minnesota quarterback situation, Kirk Cousins is out, and we got a rookie, Jared Hall, coming in. So don't really know what to expect from him, but obviously you're not going to expect the high-flying Kirk Cousins offense. He's just likely not going to be able to do that. But the Falcons, I believe, do have a quarterback upgrade in Taylor Heinicke, who, if you remember from last year, he was able to put up some respectable numbers in Washington. Not great, but he can at least throw the ball. So there are those games. I do think of these faster games, this Tampa Bay Houston one and Indianapolis and Carolina are the two interesting ancillary games to your Seattle, Baltimore, or Dallas Eagles. So all in all, though, we have a very interesting situation. We got buys, we have teams on playing in Germany and whatnot, and it's made an interesting slate as a whole. If you look at the quarterback situation, you have Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, and they're really the only quarterbacks that continuously can put this slate out of reach, meaning they can break the slate and no other quarterback is going to be able to touch them. So I think it's interesting because from a game theory spot, you could be like, well, all the ownership should be going there, but it's not. So ownership's pretty spread out. I think Lamar and Hurts are both absolutely in play, as is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott came out last week throwing the ball, and this Eagles defense is very good versus the run. I do not think the Cowboys are going to be able to run the ball. teams are throwing like 71% against the Eagles. That is, if whoever played the Eagles was a team, that would be the highest rate in the NFL. So we can expect some passing from Prescott, and I think more ownership should be going there than is currently going there. So I do like that. Howell's obviously in play. I have major concerns with Watson's shoulder. However, I mean, he is in play on this slate. Just going to be hard to click that name because of his shoulder. CJ Stroud, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield is a guy that I really like. All absolutely in play. I think Carr's super interesting. The one issue with Carr is you got Taysom Hill vulturing goal line and red zone opportunities. Now, it's going to be a harder week for the Saints to run. The Bears are good versus the run and terrible versus the pass. So I absolutely like the passing game there. Now, if we look over to... Oh, that was FanDuel. If we look over to DraftKings, so we could go over some ownership here at quarterback as well. It's more of the same, pretty spread out. Sixes or threes across the board. So really, this is the week where you go after the guy you want. There is, I would say, more likelihood this week than most that one team separates themselves and scores 30 plus real points than most weeks. And so I think stacking is going to be very, very key this week. So go after your guys. I've said a few of the guys who I like. And we can go from there. All right. Now we get into the running back situation. FanDuel's highest owned: Kamara, Jacobs, Barkley, and Chuba Hubbard. I do think Hubbard is interesting. Came out today that he's going to be the starter. So I would expect, he gets 60+% of the work and in a good spot. That's a decent amount of work. One of the guys that I absolutely have to highlight, Jonathan Taylor. He's in a smash spot. Carolina has been giving it up to the running back left and right. Him and Zach Moss are both in a good spot. Yes, they're likely to split, but I think their ownerships are going to stay low because it is a split. But both of them are in very, very good spots, and I like them a lot. Cleveland running backs, I think, are in a good spot as well, but a little bit pricey. I just don't think you can count on them as much as you could the Indianapolis guys. Obviously, the three highest owned guys are all in play. And if we scroll down a little bit, I think Kenneth Walker is very interesting. Baltimore has been a little porous through the ground, and Walker is somebody that can absolutely beat them. One thing here, though, he has been limited all week. He was limited last week. So make sure he is a full go. And if for some reason he's out, Zach Charbonnet is just a slam. Devin Singletary, Dameon Pierce is out. So Singletary is likely going to be the larger share of the backfield this week. My issue is Tampa Bay is extremely hard to run on, and I think Mike Boone is still going to be involved, so I don't think it's going to be just like Singletary getting 80% of the work. I think it's him getting 40 and Boone getting, 40, 60, something like that. Other guys down here, Brian Robinson's kind of interesting too. This Patriots D is bad, and frankly, Washington is going to want to keep their defense off the field as much as possible. They just traded away a lot of guys, and running the ball is a way for them to do that. And we know they want to run the ball. They just haven't been much of late. They have been one of the higher pass-heavy teams lately, which makes Sam Howell interesting. All right, now looking at DraftKings. So DraftKings, we got Kamara, Bijan, and Chuba as the highest. I think Saquon is in a very, very good spot. It's a spot that Jahmyr Gibbs crushed the Raiders in last week. And this offense is Saquon Barkley. I mean, if the Raiders can stop the run, the Giants are in a huge trouble, but they have not shown that they've been able to stop the run. Meanwhile, Barkley just keeps putting good games together, so I think he makes a lot of sense, even though he is expensive. And DeAndre Swift is somebody that I have some interest in. 6,600. I think this game as a whole is interesting. Now, Cowboys have been pretty good against the run, but he can score fantasy points in so many different ways that I'm not shying away from that one. Roshan Johnson and Donta Freeman. I would say I'm not going Donta Freeman this week, but Roshan is interesting. Saints are good at stopping the rushing game. However, they can let RBs beat them through the air, and Roshan is going to be the pass catching back with between him and Dr. Foreman. So I do think that he may be on the field a little bit more than last week and more than Foreman. So at his price, he is at least a little interesting. Could get some check down work. If he gets in the end zone, you know, he's a smash at that price. And getting over to wide receiver, we got AJ, we got Demario Douglas, we got CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Thomas. So, Demario Douglas, look, Bourne left with ACL injury last week. He's done for the season. Douglas is going to get a little extra work. The problem is that he's their slot guy. I do not expect him to go from, say, 40-50% snap share up to 70 because Bourne is gone. I don't think his role expands that much. While it will a little bit and maybe more targets his way, I don't think it's like an absolute smash spot to go with everybody else. Now, the Commanders are a team that we wanted to pick on through the air all year long, but I worry that all the ownership is going to Douglas when maybe it shouldn't be, just because his role may not expand that much. He is a slot guy. He's 5'8". I think he might struggle if he's moved outside to get open. CD, I do like. As I said, I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to have to pass a little bit more this game, so obviously CD is of interest. Look, Michael Thomas is finally getting cheap enough at 4,700. He's interesting. He's safe. He has a floor. You know, he's 3 for 40 or 5 for 60 pretty much every week. If he can get in the end zone, you know, he is at least a respectable scorer. My issue with him is the ceiling. He just doesn't have that much of a ceiling. His ceiling is 20 points, which at 4,700 helps quite a bit, but it's not like that wins you a GPP. So I do have some reservations there, and that is why I would probably go Rashid Shaheed before I went Michael Thomas. AJ Brown, weekly smash at this point. So, other wide receivers that I like and will have, Shaheed. I worry about this Rams passing game against Green Bay, but they did just trade their quarterback Douglas. They have Jair Alexander. Their secondary without Douglas is going to be a little bit worse. So maybe that gives a little opening for a receiver in LA to do something. Jahan Dotson. Look, the wide receiver 1 versus New England has had a very tough time. Wide receiver 2s have been able to go off a little bit. I think this matchup is decent for Johan, especially without Curtis Samuel there. And there is a chance that he gets that higher target count once again this week. We saw last week 8 for 108 and a touchdown. Week before he had 8 targets, 5 for 43. I think there is a path to him getting more again this week, and not many people are going there, as well as Mike Evans. I really do like the Tampa Bay stack with going Mayfield and either Evans or Godwin and then Rashid White. I typically don't love the running back with quarterback, but there are a couple spots in the NFL that I do. Tampa Bay is one. The Saints are another. You know, the teams that actively use the running backs in the passing game, I am okay with. And so I think that's a very interesting one this week. The leverage guys, Devontae Adams, Jaden Reed, DJ Moore, Tyler Lockett, Adam Thielen. I think all of these guys are interesting. These are all guys that we have higher projected with lower ownership. Thielen is in a great game environment. He is pricey now, so not as many people are going to go there, but he is absolutely of interest. DJ Moore, 5,900. This is a guy that can get you 30 plus, and at that price, he's absolutely in play. And Devontae Adams, nobody's going to go there because of Aiden Connell, but and this actually might be a quarterback upgrade from what we've seen the last couple of weeks with Jimmy G. So I don't think people should be afraid of Aiden O'Connell. The Giants D has been okay, been better lately, but I do think that Adams could get there, and he is at least of interest. And going over to FanDuel, so our highest owned, CD, Addison, Pittman. Addison, I do worry big time about the quarterback play there and his higher price. I'm probably not going there almost at all. CD Lamb, absolutely have interest in. Pittman, Godwin, Cooper, Brown, all of them are interesting. This Houston passing attack is one that I like. I think CJ Stroud could throw the ball a little bit. Tampa Bay is very good at stopping the run. If it comes back to where Stroud is slinging it, you got Tank Dell, Noah Brown, Nico Collins, a lot of different cheap receiving options to use in a stack. So you could use that cheaper stack and then go and find your studs to fit around that stack. I think that's a very interesting build this week, especially with none of these teams really separating themselves as far as being a team you really got to stack. All right. Now, tight end wise, tight end right now, ownership is really getting spread out. Nothing is really popping up. My favorites right now are the higher owned guys, though. I'm likely going to be, or higher price guy, I'm likely going to be paying up for Andrews, for Hawkinson, maybe Taysom, Goddard. That is likely where I am going right now. And on DraftKings, it's the same thing. Ownership's just spread out on a tight end, which makes sense on this week. There's not much that really sticks out. I personally think the best bet is to pay up, and hopefully you have one of those guys break the slate. But I do think there's some interesting cheap ones. Daniel Bellinger, 2,500, filling in for Darren Waller. We saw last year he was serviceable. He could definitely get you 10 plus at 2,500, which, you know, that's all you really need when you're that cheap. And that could open up a lot more on this slate, allowing you to fit more studs. There might be a very hard time to get more or many 25 plus fantasy point scorers this week. So having the ability to go get some studs is going to be key. The issue is that we are going to need to be smart with who we pay down for. We need guys that have some sort of upside there. Jake Ferguson, 4K is very interesting. Eagles are weak at are stopping the tight end. Ferguson's heavily used, been used in the red zone. At 4K, I think he makes some sense too. Defense-wise, all right, so this week, a bunch of bad quarterbacks and a bunch of backups are in. So the Browns, they're pricey, but Kyler Murray right now is questionable. If he does not play, Browns are a smash. If Kyler plays, by the way, this Arizona-Cleveland game, I like a little bit more. Cleveland might actually have to pass a little bit, and in that situation, I think they're interesting. But Cleveland, at home, big-time favorites versus a poor team. You got to pay up for them, but makes a lot of sense there. Saints. The Bears quarterback has not been good. I think it's a smash spot there. You could try and pick on the Raiders, or you could flip that and use the Raiders D picking on Daniel Jones. There's so many different ways to attack defense this week. The one thing I would say is don't get bogged in to just playing the Giants. I think with their ownership being so high, I think there's so many other ways we could go. You could pick Atlanta going against the Vikings. They're low owned. They're cheap. You can do that. There's just a lot of ways to go at defense this week. All of the games are low scoring, so you can go with a big time favorite at home, and then possibly just kind of hit it out of the park at defense. All right, guys, that will do it for us today. It's a very interesting week. I would say try to stack a little bit more this week than maybe you would normally, as it is very likely that one or two teams pull away. If you have two teams scoring 30 points while everybody else is in the, say, low 20s or lower, the stacks of those teams are just going to rise to the top of those GPPs. So good luck. Hope you guys win some money, and I will be back next week. Bye.